Hello and welcome to the Sias Plessis show. Thanks to everyone that has liked and subscribed today. A special edition. We don't normally do actors and movie stars, but today, Tom Datnow and Kathryn Crosby join me in studio to talk about the upcoming movie Poachers Moon, shot right here in South Africa. Don't miss the episode. Remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Sias Plessis show. Not every day we have movie stars in our quaint studio here in Johannesburg, South Africa. Tom, Kat, thanks for joining us. Firstly, congratulations. I think, Tom, I'll start with you. Everything that's transpired with Poachers Moon, the fact that we're shooting these blockbuster movies in South Africa, a place that's dear to your heart, having Kat involved. I mean, it's special. Tell me a bit more about the last 24 hours because you got up to some crazy stuff. There's an event, recognized by the King of England. It's all happening.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for that very kind intro. The last 24 hours have been a bit of a whirlwind. I got off the plane and pretty much straight into this event last night, the King Charles birthday party in Pretoria at the British High Commission residence there. And it was just, it was sort of straight out of the car into that and interviews and all of that kind of stuff. And just more than anything, I think the moment we walked in, our first sort of promo trailer was up on the big screen there, and seeing that sort of 50-foot tall and in widescreen and how we shot it anamorphically was so kind of brought a tear to my eye almost. It was a pretty amazing experience just to first see that and then to be kind of just recognized at that event and with such esteemed kind of Prince William had something playing there as well, a trailer for something around conservation and rhino poaching and that sort of thing, and other things with BBC Studios. And so to just be sort of invited and part of that kind of crew of people was a incredible almost once in a lifetime kind of opportunity and experience. And I was just blown away by it.
What does it feel like? I mean, there's this concept. It's tied to your life story.
Yeah.
It's come to life. Yeah. It's been recognized by, arguably one of the most influential people in the world. Yeah. I mean, it's goosebump stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really, I think those things kind of don't almost, maybe in a few days or weeks or years it'll sink in, but I'm kind of, it's a whirlwind. But yes, it is. It's the highest, one of the highest, if not the highest honors I think you could probably receive as an Englishman, as a a servant of the crown. It's incredible. I mean, just like I said, to be invited, to be sort of amidst that. I don't know what I've kind of done to deserve it, but I'll happily
You've worked
accept
hard.
it.
That's what you've done.
Yeah,
yeah. And I think you can
try
be very
my best.
proud. It's clearly working, man.
Yeah. Well, no, and it is like you said. It's it's been a labor of love and a semi-autobiographical retelling of my experiences growing up between here and the UK.
Yeah.
I came here for the first time when I was like 9 years old, and my grandparents are from here originally. My granddad went to Grey College, and so we have this farm in the family, and my great-grandparents emigrated from Eastern Europe, Lithuania, and were refugees here and found their way to this farm in Kimberley. And so when I was growing up, I had this heart condition. I was like, I was born basically back to front. So it was a thing called transposition of the great arteries. I was born with everything on the wrong side. So they had to go in and replumb everything. And so I was quite poorly as a kid, quite sick a lot. And my dad was a surgeon, and he thought, maybe the best place for me to be would be on this farm with the dry air and that kind of climate. And so we came here and I spent sort of half my childhood between sort of 9 and 17 most of the time here, and on our farm, and then I'd go back to the UK, and it'd be a very weird kind of, dichotomous sort of experience of like, transferring between those two worlds.
We'll get into your life story. Kat, how did your paths cross? I mean, was it film? Was it Broadway? I mean,
am I allowed to be honest?
Be honest.
Absolutely, the only safe space.
It wasn't the most romantic way of meeting, but we did meet on a dating app back in 2018.
The coolest story possible, but
yeah, we met on Hinge. So yeah, we are a couple who have now been together for 7 years, and we're due to get married this year.
Congratulations.
So it worked for us. But yeah, I saw him obviously as an actor and a Juilliard graduate, and I was like, oh, this guy looks amazing. Like, he had like some red carpet photos.
And then you met me,
and then I met you, and I was like,
plummeted.
oh, not quite the vibe, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, we about 5 years ago now, when COVID hit, like, Tom was an actor, is still an actor, but he was auditioning so much. I was, helping him tape constantly, and he was going up for like the biggest roles next to like Jake Gyllenhaal and people like that. And I was just like, dude, this guy, bless you. Like, I was like, they could have built you up in a different kind of way, like his agency and stuff. But yeah, and then in COVID, he just decided, I'm gonna start writing again. And this was a story that I'm sure you'll touch on, but it was a story that he started writing about 20 years ago at the Royal Court Theatre when he was like 16, based on his childhood friend with his friend Michael. And yeah, from then, we live in a basement apartment for 5 years. He was just kind of sat in the basement writing away whilst I was just
that's the incredible thing about all of this, I think, is, to be at like the King Charles, event last night, when you think about, I've been, like Kathryn was saying, sitting behind, this computer for 5 years in a basement with bars on the window, and just solitary kind of, the singular kind of obsession and focus has been telling this story. This is the one that this is sort of in my life, the thing that I feel.
So it must have been surreal last night.
Very surreal, very surreal. That's why it's almost difficult for me to kind of fully articulate or kind of answer that question like appropriately, because it's like so surreal. Yeah.
All right. I mean, let's go back to where this inspiration started to tell the story. Obviously, it's part of the life journey, your life experience. You have a huge piece of your heart that belongs in South Africa. It belongs with your friend Michael. What inspired you to tell this story? I mean, what was that moment where you're like, hey, I've got a story to tell. I better tell it. Was it maybe an dedication to Michael, or was it just this story needs to be heard?
It's a great question. I think 20 years ago, like Kathryn touched on, I started writing it right after Michael's death, actually. I think anything that I've ever really tried to do in any capacity in the arts has really stemmed from his passing, really. And I think kind of in hindsight, kind of looking, trying to find a way through that, that sort of period of my life. I was 17 when he died, and we were like brothers, our family were actually in the process of talking about adopting him, and couldn't have been closer. And so that all started then. And I feel like, at the time I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I was sort of trying to find a way to work through the hurt and the trauma and the pain and all of that of losing, basically a brother. And then from there, I kind of got, I guess I'd sort of call it like almost like a diversion into sort of, acting. And I moved to New York, and I was there for, about 7 years, and, Juilliard, and then,
we're going to talk about that. Don't worry.
All that stuff, and plays, and, all of that. But yeah, it was always just something that I was so, its hooks were so deeply under my skin and in me that I always had to tell this story. And I think it is. I think in a way, it is an homage. It is a dedication to our love and our friendship and our bond and all of that. And really, I think maybe even further than that, it's it's I think and I hope what kind of resonates hopefully with people is the universal human story that was our story, but is also all of our stories, and hopefully trying to sort of change perceptions around kind of black or white thinking, that there are, good guys and bad guys in any situation. There's a ton of grey, and really trying to sort of get into that and sort of that I think was really the thing that made the sort of driving force for like why I needed to really tell this, is to say, everybody on sort of either, I don't even like using the word side, but part of this equation, a fight, it's really like flip sides of the same coin. We're all really trying to survive through, sort of quite brutal circumstances at times. And that was really sort of what I was interested in kind of trying to, articulate and tell and show.
And considering South Africa's socioeconomic problems, the historical tragedy of the past, the poaching and the conservation, I mean, you touch on so many different things in this crime drama movie that I think there's something in it for every South African. Right? Is that a fair comment?
I would hope so. That's exactly what I've intended to do. And really it is about that. It is about the socioeconomic imperatives that drive this and that drive us, that none of this happens in a vacuum. Whether you're, privileged enough to be brought up here or you're brought up there, you know, we're all in different ways fighting through our own traumas and sort of difficulties and trying to, you know, do the best we can. And that's how I hope it sort of will resonate, hopefully, with everybody, you know, sort of across the board is the dream. Yeah.
And each time you come back to South Africa, I mean, it takes on a different stage.
Yeah.
I suppose some might say it's decay, without being too negative. But I mean, Kat, your experience so far of South Africa and being part of this incredible movie in a region of the country that normally doesn't see this kind of action. You know, I mean, we see the big hole, Kimberley, big hole, skateboarding and that sort of thing.
That's what everybody says when you say Kimberley. They're like, oh, the big hole.
Yeah.
It's like, there's some other stuff there too.
But now you bringing, I mean, a great friend of ours, MQ, you know, bringing the attention and the spotlight on some talented human beings in a region of the country that don't necessarily get the love.
Yeah.
And this is a game changer.
And that's exactly what we felt when we were there. You know, we did 2 days, I think, of workshops, like 9-hour workshops every single day, like bringing in like people to come and audition for us. And like, it was the first time that an international film or a film has ever been really shot in Kimberley. And like to see the people and the talent that like we unlocked was like incredible. I mean, South Africa to me, you know, I only came 2 years ago for the very first time. I mean, my heart is here in South Africa. I love it so much. Like there's so much incredible, like so many incredible people, like the cultures and everything like that. Like I've just...
And a richness to the stories. And,
I mean, MQ and Ayanda have literally taken us under their wings and they've been the most incredible people.
I mean, yeah, it should be said, like without MQ, you know, this...
Let's not give him too much credit.
Yeah,
I mean, like, he's
we
also,
love him.
you know, he's fine.
He's an okay dude.
Tell me a little bit more about those auditions. I mean, because, right, in your experience, I mean, you worked on the Bjorg movie and that's like this huge set. Now all of a sudden you're hands-on teaching people who have never been exposed to the film industry about what it takes from, you know, like how to potentially hold a camera to, this is something that could end up in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, what does that process be?
Yeah, I mean,
like?
we have obviously, you can see from our crew list, like the best crew in South Africa, in the world even. Like some of the most amazing people like Gilbert, you know, we can go into details about like everybody there. But I mean, having them as like leaders for volunteers and people who we had on set is invaluable. Like it's an absolute, I mean, even I learned some incredible things from them. You know, like making our own film, being a producer as well. Like I've learned so much from doing that and kind of being behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, which I've never done before, which was so scary, so challenging. And especially in 40-degree heat, you know, you've got all those stresses and then also you're having to deal with like everything and everybody's looking at you. Like for me, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience. Like I thank it every day, and I thank you for bringing me along.
No, I mean, you can't write and direct a film and not have, you know, cast your... It might not be your wife anymore if she's not in it. She's an actor as well.
Did before the wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a transfer of knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah,
At the end of the day, you're sharing this art.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, like Kathryn was saying, you know, some of the most incredible and talented and just hardworking, amazing people in Kimberley, but also KZN. You know, we had some incredible KZN, you know, cast and crew, Muzi Metabela, Quenzo, we had Tando, who was in Jaga, obviously MQ. I mean, you know, and then to the crew as well. They're just, you know, everyone just more than brought their A game, which if they hadn't, we would have sunk. You know, I mean, I often, you know, I directed it and acted and blah 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 and all that, and that's a whole ego thing. But you know, I was often looking around and just thinking like, this. I can't take credit for all of it because this is and that's what I love so much about film and the filmmaking process is that it's, you know, all, you know, the 100 people come together and with one sort of singular vision to make this thing happen. And that is just you know, I get goosebumps talking about that because that's kind of the coolest part of all of it, you know. Yes, you know, as a director and the creator, like, you know, the buck sort of stops with you and all of that. But when you're supported in that way, you just feel held up and like you can't really sort of fail because everyone's doing that. You know, you just takes the pressure off. You're like, we're all in this same boat together, and if we float, we float together, and if we sink together. So that's a cool thing.
And sort of behind the camera as opposed to in front of the camera. I mean, you touched on it, and this is number one, right? And hopefully the first of many.
Yeah.
Tell me about that pressure. And like you said, it does take the pressure of having a wonderful crew around you, and talented actors, and yourself knowing how you want to shape this vision.
Yeah.
But the buck stops with you, as you said. There's immense pressure to get this over the line, not just from a funding point of view, but let's see this to the end. And when it comes to opening night, it's your name on the credits, right?
Exactly.
If I can put it that way in the simplest form.
Probably your name 4 times as well, you know what I mean? So it's like Tom Datnow. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, just to talk about that pressure, where do I begin? I mean, I think we shot this in 17 days, and one of the days was rained out. So there's a drought in the movie. So one of the days it was raining, and we were like, oh no, we can't shoot anything. So let's try and quickly figure out we can shoot some interior stuff or whatever. But basically that day was rained out. So we shot it in 17, 16 days, which is practically, I think, probably unheard of for a movie that is, I think when we shot it, it was 100, and it started off 120 pages. It was 110 or 105 or whatever by the time. Typically you're going in about a page a day, but with this we were going at about, 9 pages a day.
That's unbelievable.
So we were doing 9 pages a day. I had to figure out a way really for myself to, it was the first time that I directed and been in front of the camera. And obviously you can't do both at the same time. So that's where having people like Kathryn, if she wasn't in the scene with me, or our incredible AD Phil, and other ADs, Kat, who's in the other room, just to kind of be behind the monitor, and I could look at and kind of go, cool, and they would just give me a look. And that's what's amazing about having that sort of real shorthand and just quick fire kind of,
Also Justice as well.
And Justice as well
are
the cinematography in this film is just
I can't wait. I've seen a teaser.
Yeah.
And it looks phenomenal.
Thank you, Sias. Yeah, no, it's really he did just incredible. There was not much direction.
I think your visions were so aligned, which was so nice. Like when you first had a meeting with Justice, it was amazing to see their symbiosis. It was just they were just pinging ideas off, and it was just one mind, which is what you need.
When people are saying things back to you before you even prompted them that are in your brain, it's just, that's the best place to be. But I guess just to answer the question maybe a bit more specifically as well, I had to figure out a way very quickly to go from, without sounding like Ian McKellen and extras, Surrey and to get, but figure out a way of being Tom, director, to immediately shifting into this character, James Hollander, who is sort of very troubled by sort of past and present traumas, and sort of sees threats of violence everywhere he goes, and carries that with him everywhere. So a lot of the scenes that I'm in are just incredibly heightened and intense and kind of, that way. So to go from, me as Tom, director, behind the camera, I'd have to basically give myself sort of 30 seconds just to go to that, and then cut, and cool, we're good, and then back to, and kind of, there was a little bit of a growing pains period the first couple of days.
There was a couple of people on set. It was are we talking to James or are we talking to Tom?
Yeah,
it was just a funny
And that's not to say in any way that I'm into the kind of method acty sort of, if that works for some people, that works for them. But I think there's no way also that you can't inhabit a character fully and it not kind of, perforate your sort of adrenal system or your sort of just your psychology in some way. So that was definitely something that I had to figure out, was not to kind of bring that character in any way into the behind the camera stuff.
Are you ready to become a bet influencer with Betway? Betway are introducing a world-first feature where you can make money by just sharing your betting codes. Every bet placed is generated and shared means cash profit for you. All you have to do is add 5 or more picks to your multi-bet, place your bet to generate a booking code, and share with your friends. And how much do you draw on sort of the past experience, right? I mean, you and Michael going way back, there must have been flashbacks, you know? And then in this movie where friends become enemies, that's a whole different dynamic. So where are you drawing that from? And I mean, Kat, you where are you drawing that sort of drive from? Because as someone who knows very little about acting, in the sense of, you said method actors, where do you draw that inspiration? How do you find that connection with the character you need to portray on the screen at the end of the day and sell that character, right, as an actor?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think, so I would say the most kind of emotional scenes for me to watch behind the camera were, the film is structured, we go back in flashback and see them as children quite a lot, or 3 times. I think watching Ntando, who played young Michael, and Thomas, who played young James, watching them in those scenes, which were all of those scenes as children were completely sort of, autobiographical.
Yeah.
They were like, as it happened.
Even the rifle, I saw the one scene on the shoulder, it's...
all from actual things that happened.
Yeah.
Like, we were out, shot a dove, and I made it this huge, and I felt like it was this huge moral kind of conundrum and problem, and all of those things were kind of completely from 100% autobiographical. And so I think when I was on set watching them play out these moments that we'd lived, that was kind of the most sort of touching and surreal and kind of almost spooky, but just incredibly moving. And they do an amazing job in the film as well. I mean, it's just... really elevated.
I was going to say, just to highlight that we shot on Tom's family farm as well. So when you're going around, you can see etchings of Michael and Tom with like a love heart and
carved into the
walls. And you've got the skate ramp that they used to play on, and it did really feel like, not in a weird kind of way, but like I did feel like Michael was kind of watching over us and like seeing this whole thing play out. And I think the very final day, if you don't mind me saying, the final day on set, like Tom just took a second to go and have a walk around the farm and just like kind of thank it and just like to
So when we wrapped the last shot, I just had to walk out into the bush and I just like broke down. Like I just started bawling, just bawling my eyes out. And then I went round and I kind of, just said a thank you to all the kind of, places that had kind of significance, and just kind of an overwhelm, I think, of all of it.
You're shooting a movie in 17 days, my man. There's like all this emotional baggage that's coming with it. I mean, the fact that you only really experienced that breaking point
at that moment
shows you're human.
Well, very human, and like, I think also, just having to really hold it together for so long, and be the, actor, producer, writer, director, and kind of constantly wearing all those hats, and then right at the, at the last moment, it was just kind of like a, so yeah, that got me. But I think playing James, I kind of, I don't kind of come from the method acting thing, but I think, because Juilliard is it's all kind of, sensory experience and imagination based, really, and I hope, when people watch the movie as well, they'll know that there are definitely, I'm sure, elements of me in James, and probably elements of all of us and all the characters, hopefully. But I would hope that I'm not him. That's kind of it's all an imagining of, everything that happens subsequent to us as children is really an imagining of where we might have been, where our lives could have taken us. And really the rhino poaching aspect of the story is kind of, a catalyst and a conduit to bring us back together and into collision, and how we then might have been able to reclaim some of that lost innocence that we once, shared as children. And, after experiencing this world of horrors that we each individually did in our sort of separate tributaries as adults, how we may have been able to kind of navigate that and find our way back together into the brotherly bond that we, that we held. So, yeah.
Tom, what's your vision for this movie? Well, I mean, you touch on so many different things, and I mean, it's hard to sort of delve into each one and give it enough time, right? And unfortunately, we only have so long on the show. But what is your hope? Is it to connect with the conservation side, the rhino poaching? Is it about the divides that South Africa still feels to this day? Because I think to say that racism's gone, or people are judging people on their skin color, or still doing that, those days are not gone. There's still elements of that. We've come a long way. We've come a really long way. What is your vision? I mean, is it firstly for the impact in Kimberley and saying this is a destination where we want to make more movies, but is it also about spreading the word beyond the South African borders about what actually happens here. And it's real.
Well, I think so many people are so unaware, of the plights that are facing so many South Africans to this day. I mean, a little bit maybe more so now with the 24-hour news cycle of what's going on, but I think people still don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We see snippets of it over there, or people see snippets, and it's only because I've been fortunate enough to have the experience of having lived here and be a fly on the wall, to those experiences, that I kind of know a little bit more, about it, and could lend that to writing the script and telling the story. So, I hope that we can open people's eyes to the sort of the prejudices across the board that sort of still exist, but also hopefully trying to sort of shift those perceptions away from a kind of black or white thinking, sort of demonizing of either position. I think ultimately the question is, if you were in this position, what would you do? If you're brutally honest about it? If you grow up here and are fortunate enough to live this way, this set of circumstances are afforded to you that are not afforded over here. And knowing the sort of humanity in myself and that I recognize in other people, I know that everybody is capable of anything at any given time under the right set of circumstances.
Absolutely.
All you need is, it's the Joker line in Batman, it's like all you need is a little push, it's like, and then you're there, and that's really what I hope to convey with this, is just that, if your son's dying and you're earning this amount of money and your wife's pregnant and you're living in this, sort of, economic situation, and somebody offers you this amount of money to pull a trigger, and one night you'll earn more money than you would in, 2 years, and your son won't die, and your wife will, have a successful pregnancy, and, all these things, and you'll survive.
Yeah.
Up to you to decide, what you do. And then on the other sort of flip side of it, it's like, if you've encountered these sort of world of traumas that other people face, where does that put you as well? And I think also, just quickly to go back to to playing James and that character, I think for me it was really important to kind of get that trauma through with him as well. He's somebody that's deeply affected by and deeply troubled by the things that he's experienced and seen, and his father's death and things like that happen in the movie. And he also served in the South African military for 15 years in a specialized canine infantry platoon, and doing border protection. So, I think these sort of his experiences and how that bleeds into, the events of the film, and his kind of personal psychology, I think is really important, because I never wanted it to be just kind of like a one-sided, expose.
And just that sort of like the rip marks or the tear marks on his face or whatever that looks like. And then the line about the wolf that's so prominent. I mean, that's James, right? Exactly.
And the moon as well. There was a line that I wrote, and it was one of those moments that I missed it. So I wrote this line, which was right before he says, "This is the valley of the wolf," and blah, blah. There's a line that I wrote, which was, "The moon makes monsters out of men." And that was something that was really important to me as well, that, what happens to us under the sort of auspices, the power of, of a full moon. The film is structured to the lunar cycle. And the kind of monsters that we can become or not become. I think that was the interesting thing, really, was like, in this barren, wild, survivalist environment, you can either become an oasis that blooms out of that desert and a beacon of light and hope through that, or the alternative to that, a monster. And really kind of, it's every human has the decision, the choice to make, which path you're going to follow.
I would love to find out from you guys. Like, you've all been on these journeys to where you are, Broadway, acting, movies. What is your advice? And maybe it was something you said to an aspiring actor in Kimberley, or people who, can I get a selfie? Can I, what is your advice? Because life is tough no matter where you live in the world. You still have to put in the hard work. But what kind of is that advice that you give them to aspire to be in the position that you guys are?
First of all, I would acknowledge that I've been incredibly privileged to be able to, study where I studied and just have the opportunities afforded to me that, that I have. But I would say love the thing that you want to do and invest in it through that love. I think that what I mean by that is from a very young age, I was like a sort of voracious reader and consumer of films, and, you know, MQ was the same, and just watch, you know, everything and read everything, and, you know, and I think just really focus on that. If it's something that you love that much, I mean, for me, it was like I would just get lost in stories, whether it was reading or writing or you know, taking in film. And I think if you approach it from that point, all of the other stuff kind of is a happy byproduct of that. I think if you come at it from the other perspective, and, you know, it's like you're sort of getting it, you know, the other way round, twisted, I think, you know, kind of almost on a hiding to nothing. I think a lot of people, I mean, I see it in a lot of people, and I don't really fully understand it, and maybe I'm sort of talking out of my backside, but I feel like a lot of people kind of go the other way and want to sort of, I don't know, like there's a fame thing, or I don't know.
I definitely think it's a fame thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They see the movie stars, they see social media, and they go, I want to be famous.
Yeah.
What's the fastest way to be famous?
Yeah.
And also with social media nowadays, like it's such a thing. I was also going to say that, like, you know, what we always talk about is the goalposts are always shifting. Like you'll get to it. You know, I know that we've still got so much, you know, there's so much growth still to do and everything like that. So I think it's just about like, taking care of you inside, and like knowing that, like you kind of said, like following your passion and the perseverance of it. Like it's okay to have the really, 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 really bad days. Just know that they'll pass. You know, we still experience those days where you're thinking, oh gosh, you know, you're banging your head against the wall and you're thinking, gosh, these things aren't working. But it's just that perseverance, I think, to keep going. And
that's an excellent, like, I should have said that as what you know, that's a perfect point. Like, I mean, perseverance and grit, I would say, you know, like, I really feel like, you know, it's so trite to say and everyone says it, but, you know, it being a marathon, not a sprint, and, you know, the tortoise, not the hare. I think, like, whoever's there still standing in the 12th round, still swinging, like still getting up off the canvas, you know, I think that's the person who ultimately sort of prevails. At least that's what I try and sort of tell myself, because we have, like Kathryn says, you know, like we're not past those. I'd be sitting here lying if I was saying like we're past those, you know, those dark days come for all of us at a certain point. You know what I mean? Even if you're doing this and you've made a beautiful, you know, international feature, like those dark, you know, I might have another one next month, next week. You know what I mean? Like that, you know, those, and it's okay. And those days come. But I think that the thing that shifts is you have more sort of reference, and you know, I've experienced this before, and you know, and I'll come back to, you know, and that happens much quicker.
But also, how beautiful are those experiences to use in your craft as well? You're not going to be a very successful, like, creative or something if you haven't experienced life. Like, it's just all of us as creatives, like, it's the best thing for.
Well, that's it too, isn't it? Is like life, you know. I think you know, training at Juilliard, doing all that stuff, amazing. But I think life and sort of, you know, you don't. If I hadn't lived, I wouldn't have been able to write Poachers Moon or do anything really.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think. That's been the biggest thing, you know, is like have as many experiences as you possibly can in a safe way, but like, you know, have like, you know, experience it all. I mean, I think that's kind of what I try and tap into kind of on a daily basis, is just like, how can I 10x my like life, you know. And I look at the directors that I love, like they sort of, you know, even like the Werner Herzogs and the, you know, some of the documentarians, the great ones who, you know, you can just tell looking at them, it's etched on their face. They don't even need to say anything, you know. And I want to get to that point, you know, where I'm like, you know, in my 70s and I can just sort of sit here like, yes, well, you know, when I was, you know.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff, guys. We're running out of time. Yes. Tell me a bit more. Why must people watch this movie? And where can they watch it? And I'm just so pumped to tell people about this film, man. And it's been an absolute honor having you guys in studio, sharing this passion. We could talk for hours, and hopefully we'll get some time when everything is official and said and done. But why should people watch Poachers Moon?
Well, I think if you're looking for a story that really engages the human spirit and, you know, the human condition and the psychology of all of us as people, and also, I think we're also in an entertainment industry, medium. And hopefully it's an entertaining and exhilarating and sort of tension-filled, dramatic ride as well, that kind of keeps people hooked and on the edge of their seat from that perspective too. This isn't a sort of 60-minute documentary expose on the plights of, it's really about these people and how they navigate this world and their relationships and how they sort of, how we all kind of drift apart and hopefully come back together and kind of hopefully reconcile. And so I hope that it impacts people on a heart level. I really try and do things that I hope aren't kind of purely intellectual, or intellectual at all. Really, I think the best thing comes from there, and really hits people in that way. And the movie hopefully should be out in toward the end of the year, around November. And so we're looking at cinemas and different platforms, and VOD and lots of different avenues that we're currently sort of having negotiations with and all of that. And so as soon as that's all locked down and we know exactly which cinemas and where it's going to be, you'll be there.
Absolutely, I would love to. I want to be there. MQ, if you're watching.
We got you.
Hook me up.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful to see your contribution to the film industry here in South Africa. Hope it's the first of many. You've touched many lives. You've inspired people. You've given actors in South Africa more purpose, more direction, and keep up the amazing work. And can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much, Sias. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.